All right, welcome back, class 2, part 2. Continuing in on demos, and I'm going to be painting on a vineyard, and we're going to be using that 4-value plane and talking about perspective and how I use that to lay in my darks, which is where I'll start with the upright planes. I generally, when I paint, is from dark to light for the most part. It's not like a direct path. I'm always able to go back in and reestablish darks and things like that. But I'm just hoping to show you that. And I want to show you how this painting started. So quickly we'll do change camera. And make it big here so you guys can see. So there it is right now. It is an acrylic burnt umber, basically. And I think maybe tiny bit of black mixed to kind of create these different effects. And I'm going to show you really quickly a video of the start of it. I don't have the video where I just kind of went in with the burnt umber over everything, because that's kind of boring. You can see how messy I just put it in, but it was kind of who asked earlier about tinting the canvas or about painting the canvas. This just kind of helps me because anywhere the burnt umber shows through a little bit will probably be fine and kind of help tie in the whole image as kind of a, you know, having a universal color underneath. All right, and now I'm going to share screen and we're going to pop over to my YouTube. All right, everybody sees my channel on here. Let's make it big.
Yeah.
All right, so this is just a 30-second little painting demo of me just sketching it in. I'm using a shop brush, really cheap, so you can see it's making very irregular marks. I do have some pencil lines down to kind of mark some things on there, just because otherwise I was afraid I'd get lost. But it really super basic, just big shapes. And then coming in with some, you know, getting some of the, whatever they're called, fines, I guess.
Grapevines.
Grapevine. Yeah.
Is this on Padlet?
It is not yet, no. And then I thought it might be kind of fun to share if you guys are okay. I wanted to show you the process of painting this painting, the sunset.
I was wondering if you were going to do that.
So I try to record myself. There's a couple reasons. You can see the pencil line drawing in there a little bit. Again, just kind of giving myself some big marks. And you'd say, why is he painting like the detail of these figures? But by putting them in dark, then I can go over the tops of them. So I'm just getting my big shapes. This one's a little more specific. You can see how the time of day changing. So it's a lot faster than it seems. This is hours and hours of painting. Now I'm going in with acrylics and just kind of establishing my value structure. Again, I just wanted to make sure that I've kind of got things locked in because these rocks are really specific to the area. And I just wanted to make sure I got them kind of the right shape, right spacing, everything else. But you can see the value shifts between the darks and the lights a little bit being a setup there. Then I covered it all with quinacridone red and a touch of Indian yellow. So I don't have that, but here's really quickly mixing sky colors because it's a lot of sky in there. And you can see me just trying to decide, are these colors too bright, too dark? You know, what do I need?
Wow.
And so I just start kind of attacking again, just like I did before. I'm getting in the darks of those clouds kind of established first.
Now, do you see them in your head? Do you see where they are in your head?
Well, I did have a reference photo.
Oh, okay.
For this one, yeah, the clouds are not made up. This is a very specific, it was actually solstice, equinox.
Equinox, yeah, the return of the sun.
So it's very specific about where the sun was setting and everything else, just so. And then I go back into the water and I'm doing the same thing, kind of a dark to light. So I'm getting in the area that's facing away from the sunlight, getting in the waves, the darker part of the waves. And then the surf was actually surprisingly beautiful and blue, and it really looks like it when you put it next to the pink underpainting. And just kind of, I'll start cooling those down, but you can see the figures. I've, you know, I'm not protecting them. I just covered them right up, but I can see like this poor guy here. It looks like he's playing golf, but I think he's painting for gold or whatever, whatever that's called. But I can still see him, like he's under there just ghosted. So when I want to get back to bringing him out, I can. So there we go. That's the beginning. And now I start mixing up a whole bunch of new colors to kind of come back in. I like having a pretty clean work palette. So I just mix, even though it's a huge palette, I like to have it. So now I'm trying to bring in the effect of the light onto the objects around it. So we got the dark in the beach. We have the light in the beach. And yeah, hopefully you'll be able to see the kind of how the light's going to be moving across the objects here. Oh yeah, painting more back. So now I'm going back into the sky because I've got kind of my big shapes established. So to make the warms feel warmer, you need the cools. Also paying attention to the bands of the sky color still, keeping those in play. Bringing in some detail, bringing in some more warmth. I think that part of the sky was pretty dry, so now I can kind of come in and glaze a little bit, adding a little more warmth right into the area where I really wanted the focus to be. And really letting some of that reflection get into that water and really sing. Nearly finished.
Michael, this whole thing is in acrylic?
No, just that black and white part at the beginning.
Okay.
Was the only thing that was acrylic. No, mostly oils. So there you go.
Gorgeous. Lucky change.
Yeah, it was a fun project.
We think so.
Yeah. So good. Let's go ahead and pop up to, and if you guys are not, oh yeah, you guys are. Okay, I'm gonna change cameras and get up to that other painting, and let's start establishing some of those values. Again, just thinking again with the 4 value keys to the landscape. So you guys can basically see a dark and a light. It's again very rudimentary. All I need to do is mark in my big shapes. I can refine everything as I'm progressing. But what I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to be thinking about, let's see if I can straighten this up a little bit, but I'm afraid I'll be blocking it if I don't have it at a bit of an angle. So I'm going to be asking you guys about this. Where do you think my darkest darks should be?
Up front,
The trees.
up
These
front
trees?
in
The
those trees
trees.
and the grapevines up front.
Yeah, so some of these stronger uprights, like the posts that are a little more solid, those will be probably my darkest darks in the shadow. Again, it depends. Like if the light was behind me and hitting this, then they could be some of the brighter things, you know, depending on the color of the wood. But yeah, I'm gonna have some really dark darks probably along here into some of these uprights in here. And then yes, you're right. Whoever said trees will be really quite dark. They're big, dark masses. I'm just like I typically do. I probably will backlight this to a degree, you know, have the light coming from the sky, probably from, I don't know, maybe from about up here, kind of raking across. I do have a mountain that I added at the very end, just thinking that it was too flat of a shape otherwise. So that will be some of my, you know, that'll be fairly light. So it's going to be quite a ways back there. I'm thinking of having quite a bit of atmosphere. But what I really like about having this established, and now what I can do is I'm just going to, just like I did before, I'm going to mix up a big pile of dark color. Probably again, just using my burnt umber and ultramarine blue, because I just really like the fact that I can warm it or cool it and create a variation in my lights and darks. And I'll just show you. I'm going to figure out very quickly how much depth do I want to have and how much depth do I want to play with? What also is going to happen to my shadows as they come forward towards us?
Michael, is that Tuscany?
It's kind of made up.
Okay.
They're
Then needs more mountains.
It will
They
be
get
warmer in the front, the shadows.
Be warmer and darker up front. Yeah, exactly. Just squeezing out a little more ultramarine blue here. And figuring out kind of what is my darkest dark color. Again, I can always come back in and, make it even darker if I want, at the end, you can kind of come in and add highlights and low lights and, really push your detail. But in the beginning, I'm just looking for big shapes, big values. And I'm just going to go ahead and move the camera down so you can see what I'm doing down here. Is I've mixed a dark that's a little warmer and a dark that's a little cooler. I already know that I'm going to be making a lot, so I'm just going to make a big pile. What I would also do is kind of figure out, is it going to be really warm light? Is it cooler light? And so I should probably, actually be thinking about that. What's happening in that sky area up above? Because that will actually influence the shadows as well. Yeah.
For me, it's warm. It's warm light.
I think warm light. Warm light's my favorite.
I've
And
never
this-
seen much cool light in Tuscany.
There you go. Perfect. It's Tuscany, Oregon, California, everywhere, anywhere.
Oh,
vineyard.
that one I can't tell you.
Yeah, but warm light's good. People like warm light. So then what I can do is after I mix these big piles, I can pull off some of that. And I can make a couple more value shifts, meaning the color will get a little bit lighter. So I can do this, as many times as I want, but I'm just going to try establishing things. So I'm thinking probably 2 or 3 value shifts should really get me pretty far. And what I'm doing at this point is I'm thinking of my shadows, or at least the bigger, darker shapes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
That will hopefully really, really help me to give myself a sense of depth in the painting really quickly, just by looking at the darks. The darks, again, oftentimes I think of as like the foundation of the painting. And then all the areas that are being hit by light are like the curtains, right? If I got my good foundation and my walls up and my roof, then I can start, getting into the decorating and the color selection and everything else. Because I can picture all these fields could be, I can make it fall and make them all golden and warmer, or I could make it spring and make it all green. Maybe I'll do green because my vineyards are always yellow. I love fall vineyards. The other thing I could do is really quickly paint in part of the sky. So I really do get a sense of the amount of atmosphere and light and the temperature of those things. But I'm just gonna really quickly just knock in some darks just so I can kind of see.
Michael, on the left, on the the vines on the left, the top where it's so light, did you take color away with, a Q-tip or something, or did you just leave that open?
Yeah, I just left it more.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is all acrylic.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so it's hard to do any of that with acrylic, but I could bring in and maybe I did even with a wet paper towel really quickly, but you know, when
Okay.
you're painting something this big, it does dry fast.
Mm-hmm.
I got fingerprints in my sky. So right now I can just kind of test. Can you guys see these dark lines I'm making on there?
Yes, it's
Yes.
darker than the base.
Yeah, how much darker that is. Don't want to use that brush though. It's going to be too soft. And a lot of times I will start with a firmer brush and then end with my softer brushes. Just because it's easy to and quick to put down color. So really quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up. I'm going to kind of focus on this area of the painting because I've got the mountains there. I've got my like closest thing and my furthest thing here. So I'm going to just establish those values, see how they work, and then hopefully I'll have enough paint left over, or, you know, I just use burnt umber and ultramarine and white, really easy to remix those colors. But that way I can just test and see like, okay, that's too dark in the foreground or not dark enough, or I've painted myself into a corner and my mountain, I haven't left it, you know, an area for it to be dark enough. So I'm just kind of looking into the shadows underneath some of these vines. Maybe some of the uprights and the grasses that are down on the ground there. So again, you guys can see the darks that I'm putting in.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I don't need to get much detail at this point because again, this is just a test. So, you know, I just need enough that I can see it when I step back and I look at it all going up. So now my color is going to get just a touch lighter, my shadows, and a little bit cooler as I get back here towards these trees. So that's still pretty dark, and that's fine. If, you know, I want them, now I just lightened it a touch more.
They're going to be backlit, right?
Yep. And there'll be a little bit of reflected light off the dome of the sky coming down. So, you know, it's not just silhouettes. There'll be some color in those trees. I just want to get them covered enough that I can see those values pretty clearly. I don't need to cover every little centimeter of them.
Michael, is this
Mhm.
is this an actual vineyard or is this made up
No, it's made up. It's a composite of
composite? Yeah.
probably like 3 or 4 different paintings from around the area. And then back here, it gets more and more made up. Like I just kept adding more and more land. Tending for
I was
how
gonna
high-
That would be a big one for Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, you can get up under the, you know, the red hills or whatever they're called.
Right.
And you know, you can see really pretty far, but then it flattens out. There's no like big hills unless you're looking to the west. But a lot of times from that from up there, you're looking just due south. There's no real hills out that way. So it gets really flat. So a lot of times if I'm not painting a vineyard to look, you know, just like the vineyard, I will add something. And all my trees are kind of in along the same row almost. These ones may be a little closer than these, but I could probably get away with having the shadow value being very similar. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing that this is a little darker than this.
Yep. Yeah.
Now we're going to start to move back another step. And we'll get to, I'm going to have kind of a bigger jump all of a sudden as we get into these trees kind of looking down the hill. So you're looking down and then kind of across. That's where vineyards get really tough for me as far as the perspective and the math and stuff. These ones, luckily, I don't have to deal with a whole lot of rows. They're kind of going to be kind of messy, not just perfect going away. So there we go. We got a value that's slightly lighter going back there. And I'm just going to keep to that value. I don't have to keep, alternating values every time I do a little step back. I'm going to do it a little more jumpy than that. So these values here. And if I wanted to, and I knew like these are red trees, these are yellow trees, these are green trees, I could include some of that into my shadow colors here if I wanted. But I'm just gonna, again, I'm just keeping it pretty simple. I'm just continuing to build my roadmap to build on. So I'm going to jump back and put a little bit of dark here, just so I have that reference point on this side. So again, what I'm doing is just scanning my eyes. Okay, we got the darkest darks right through here. And it gets up to here, a little bit lighter, a little bluer. Then it gets into here, a little bluer, a little grayer. Now it's going to get a touch lighter again as I continue to move back into space. I almost feel like when I get a good drawing down and kind of established, and then I get these shadows kind of in there, it's almost like cheating in a way to me, because all of a sudden I've got so much information, even though I'm making a lot of this up, which is kind of fun because I can just go, you know what color are these fields? I don't know. What are some pretty colors that go together? They could be golds, they could be pinks, but I know by having this part established, the shadow structures and my having a recession of values, that is when I put up a color, I'll just know like, oh wait, that's way too vibrant. It doesn't feel like it's going into space there like I want it to when I have the shadows up next to it, if that makes sense. Just gives me a way to kind of check things if they even just feel right or not. All right, I'm going to get even lighter. Getting crazy. And I'll come back and refine these shapes that I'm just kind of scribbling down there. When I come in and paint the fields, and I'll, put some semblance of some detail, but not much, especially when we get back here, right? These little tiny trees way off in the distance are just little dots. Or clumps, or just little shapes. It's amazing how little detail you can get away with. And it actually oftentimes reads so much more clearly than having a lot of detail far away. But again, I live in the Pacific Northwest, where we have so much atmosphere and aerial perspective going on.
I love the open spaces.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like my paintings, I should almost charge more if there's more real estate.
You should. That's a
You're
good
getting-
idea.
You're getting hundreds of thousands of acres here.
That's it.
But it's kind of a nice thing to bring something like this into your house because it really does feel like it opens up the space. Like
Mhm.
having, having a vast vista.
And that's the cooler color you're using as you get further.
Yep, getting lighter and cooler as it gets back.
Okay.
And I might eventually want to warm it back up a little bit, but it's going to continue probably to get lighter, even if I started adding more pinks or whatever. If it's a real strong atmospheric, backlit day, then sometimes that fog can get warm feeling. But I can adjust that. Right now, I'm still just kind of figuring out where things are in space. How do they relate to each other as far as depth and perspective is concerned? Let me know if I'm not making sense.
You're making sense.
Ooh.
It looks great.
But do you see how even just adding these blues, even though it's still got all this brown tan, you see how it's beginning to lay down?
It sure is.
Yeah.
Space there.
Yep, it's
What-
pushing you way back,
What's
Yeah.
that?
pushing you way back, the color, I
Isn't
think.
that weird? And it's still so warm, but it's 90% warm, but these little bits of cold in the shadows really helps us to read it properly. I found, and this is a little bit of a cheat or a cop out, but I found sometimes I don't have to create as much depth in the flat upright or in the ground planes if my shadows have a lot of depth. Then
Mm.
our eye will just fill those in for us. Make them
Would you say that again? My brain doesn't get it.
yeah. So I'll just show you an example. So I'm just gonna paint a yellow field back there real quick. Kind of a yellowish. I'll even make it a little greenish. So I could have a field here that's kind of yellowy green.
Mhm.
I'm just going to use the exact same color, put it further back, and then I'm just going to use the exact same color and put it way back here.
Mhm.
Because let's even bring it forward, same exact color.
So you're going back, you're getting wider, which gives it more depth.
Well, it's actually all of these are the same color.
Right.
But because of the value of the darks, it definitely feels like it's going back, doesn't it?
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's how the colors reflect off each other, the dark and the light.
Yeah, and then like all I need to do is come in and I'll just slightly add a little more yellow to it. And it'll start to come forward. Let's add a little more yellow to it again.
So it's really subtle.
Very subtle. I can get away with a lot on the ground if the uprights, if the shadows are following logic,
Mm-hmm.
because in an ideal world, and how I will paint it is like this will be more vibrant,
Is the back window open?
but I almost don't need to.
Right.
So that's just kind of something to keep in mind is that your uprights, your shadows, your values in your shadows are more important. Your brain will fill in the others. If I watch this, oops, I need to clean my brush because I want to be pretty dramatic here. But watch what happens here. This is going to be really horrible. I'm going to take some of this dark.
Don't do it.
Watch what happens. Put it back here. Ready?
Ah,
You see how all of a sudden that spot, you can't
Yeah.
you almost look
Comes
at it.
forward.
Right.
Really, it feels like it's just floating in space.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe you guys made me do that.
That's much fun.
hmm.
So yeah, I find that I can get away with so much. Don't tell anybody. But if my shadow values are reading convincingly, then I can get away with a lot in the color. Oh geez, I just dipped my brush in the darkest color again.
Mhm.
I'm to the lightest shadow color now. All right, so now I'm getting to my lightest gray that I made. And now I'm getting back to hills that might be even covered in, trees. So they might be bigger areas. But by making them hopefully lighter than the layer below it. It's not reading as too much lighter. Huh. It's interesting. I'm going to add a little more white to it. And maybe a little more blue to it. Let's let it really get cooler. Maybe I was already using that color.
Is that ultramarine or
Yeah, I just added ultramarine
Okay.
to it. And evidently, before I get to the mountain, that's about as light as I'm going to get
Wow.
with my shadows. And it's really, really quite light. I mean, I could still lighten it, I guess, more. I appreciate you guys letting me do this. I was very hesitant to pick up a great big painting, but I think that this is such a good example of, even though this is sky and trees, learning how to the illusion of depth almost
Exactly.
almost simply just through the shadows, the darks, is so important. I remember asking in one of the first plein air classes I was in, is, what's happening to this field as it goes back, as it recedes into space? The reds kind of become more purple, the yellows become, start to sink away. And the guy's just like, you don't need to worry about that so much. Just worry about the shadows. And I was just blown away by how I could almost paint this field going back into space as a big solid color, as long as the shadows made sense. And that really has freed me up over the years to really be able to play with colors and experiment with colors in different ways. So that's why I like doing these patchwork paintings, is because all I'm going to be doing is thinking, I mean, I want to think about, maybe what kind of a crop it is, but truthfully, I could have a pink, an orange, pale green. And as long as these have these beautiful color harmonies, I like that almost better than trying to mimic the exact right colors that I'm seeing. All right, we're going to get back to this big mountain. I'm going to go ahead and lighten this up one more time, add even a little more blue. This time I'm going to add a little bit of that King's blue, which is a little grayer.
I don't know about anybody else, but this is exactly what I needed.
Mhm.
I
Yes,
need to see the paint go on
yep.
and how it goes on.
So what I would do now is I would probably take a little break and step away because I want to get fresh eyes on it, right?
Mhm.
I know mentally what I want it to be doing. So sometimes that kind of can influence what I'm actually seeing is what I want to be seeing. Can get in the way. So a lot of times just a 5-minute break, just run down, refresh my coffee or whatever else. But the other thing I want to do really quickly is because I need to figure out what I want to do with this sky real quick. Give me a half a second to pull up some sky references and just see if I can see something. Because I want to get a little bit of the sky color in too. I'll just pull up I've got like a page of just a bunch of them.
You could get even more busy and complicated by having those clouds that make shadows on the landscape.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would yeah. You made my head hurt.
Yeah.
But yes, I've got lots of great photos of like that when we were in Germany of the rolling mustard fields and stuff. With the bright yellow, flowers with the dappled light hitting them.
When you wiped out the sky, you already have a pattern up there in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Mhm.
Maybe that'll be what I'll use. Yeah, I'm just gonna look in. Where do I want my light source? I'm almost thinking like I want my sun kind of in this area so that it can be hitting, the sides of these vines, so they're getting that bit of glow.
Yeah.
And then these would be a little more backlit, so I could really play up the light and shadow here. So just really quickly, just gonna mix up a little bit of paint here. So I just grabbed quinacridone red, grab a bunch of white, maybe a touch of Indian yellow. More white. My favorite color. Kind of a
Peach.
peach. Yep, kind of a peachy. It's really a lot pinker. Touch more yellow, touch more white. Ah. Back of the brush has a little. Should have cleaned my brush. Guess there's a cloud there now. Maybe that was a good mistake. We'll see. Kind of
I
nice.
hear Bob Ross again.
Yeah, indeed.
It's your painting.
It's a happy little accident.
Happy little vineyard. As if there was a sad vineyard.
Bless his heart.
I'm just grabbing all of my white. So I'm doing that thing that you guys are talking about making too big a pile. So now it's eating all my paint that I put in.
Michael, is this one of the paintings for your upcoming show?
For a gallery in California, yeah, unless one of you guys buys it before.
I know you said had what, like 15 paintings that you needed to get done?
Yes, this is one of those, yeah.
How did you happen to get into a gallery in Aurora Grande?
Good question. They just reached out to me, and they their son is a chef here in Portland. So and when I found out they were going to visit, because they were saying it's a brand new gallery, so that scared me. And they have not been gallery owners before, so I wanted to meet with them. Well, actually, I just said, "Why don't you just come to my studio?" So I invited them to the studio, and then we ended up going out to a vineyard and spending the whole day together, just hanging out and talking and drinking wine, and they were just delightful. And I liked their vision. I'm hopeful for them. I don't know if they know what they're in for, how hard running a gallery really is.
Exactly. Yes.
My folks lived there for 20 years, and I love that area.
Yeah, I heard it's beautiful. I've never been, but it has the vineyards on one side and then the ocean on the other. I mean, that sounds kind of like perfection.
Where
Sounds
is it?
good to me.
And a lot of rural farms and stuff, which I love. So it's kind of got
Yeah,
everything.
it's a heavily an agricultural area. A lot of Portuguese fishermen and farmers.
Where is this?
Arroyo Grande.
It's part of the Five Cities area. It's Pismo. There's Pismo Beach, Shell Beach, Aurora Grande, Oceano. I'm missing one.
So Southern
missing-
California.
It's actually almost perfectly between LA and San Francisco on the
Oh,
on the
Is it-
coast.
Is it
Huh.
close to Ventana?
Ooh, I don't
No.
remember that.
Okay.
No, Ventana's in Big Sur.
Okay.
It's the Five Cities are about I think they're about 20 miles south of San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
So again, I'm not going to cover my whole sky. I'm just keeping it in this line, hoping that I can remix all these colors and everything else. But I want to get to where I can kind of see where my sun is.
Well, God bless you, Michael, on this new gallery.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
And I really hope they succeed because gallery work is really constant. There's no taking a day off.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be curious. But yeah, I guess that the town is becoming a little more touristy, and then again, because of the agriculture and stuff, there is some, great big homes and quite a bit of money, and then they're becoming more of a destination for the wineries and things. So I think that, a vineyard or a gallery makes sense. And then the place that the gallery will be is right on the main drag in Arroyo Grande. And it's an old Victorian home that they bought, and they've already turned that into a winery that's our tasting room that's up and going. And they have some art in there. And then in the big space behind it, off to the side of the road, is where they're building their gallery. So, I always think galleries and tasting rooms go pretty well together.
Let them have a few sips and go look at the paintings.
Up your wallet just a bit, yeah.
That area is also known for the fact that you can drive on the beach at Pismo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been to Pismo a couple of times. I think one of my friends used to live there. And I think that there's maybe even like an art thing in Pismo, like some kind of a plein air competition or something like that. I've heard the name a number of times. So anyway, just kind of putting down some colors. You guys can't even see them on the monitor probably. They're also light. I'll have to get some darks in there. But I'm just testing. I'm just gonna go ahead and put my sun as a marker, get some light. And I'm thinking I want it to hit here, here, here. I want it to hit across here, here, here. So I'm kind of triangulating it. And I don't want it too close to the edge of the canvas. So bam, I'm just gonna put it there. Subject to change.
Perfect.
Well, it's going to be gorgeous when you get it done. Oh, absolutely gorgeous.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, so you guys, okay, so I'm just gonna rehash what we just did and why. So bringing in my shadow, I got my design in there kind of, but you could see it was all just brown and kind of mushy. So now I'm coming back in and establishing the shadows, which I'll continue to do. I'll come back in, after class or tomorrow during painting time and work on this. And I'll if I like this jump of values, which right now I really do, because doesn't it look almost like some light fog, like Ariel's perspective in there, like maybe it's still the morning and the fog is lifting, and but it'd be high enough up that I could make some nice bright yellows, like if I did want to do a bright colored leaf up front, right? I could have some bright colors. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So I could have bright colors up front and then getting softer and more subtle, and then having the sun. And again, figuring out the angle so that I can really have these nice rows of vines catching the light from that back angle. But by establishing these darks and having them get lighter and lighter and lighter, I now know that I can remix these values, come back in, establish that, bring it across. I'll probably let that dry for even just one day. The burnt umber in the paint will make it dry, or at least tack up, because I don't need it to be completely dry really quickly. And then I can come in probably even on Friday, if I'm able to paint on Friday. I'm going to go visit my grandma, take her breakfast and stuff. So hopefully they're done, come back in and start adding color and have a good time. So that is a lot of time, especially with something with a lot of depth and a lot of perspective, is how I will kind of feel that out. And you guys see how this still pertains to the 4 values of the landscape to a degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that the uprights are my darkest all the way through, even my uprights way back here. But by establishing them, these darks will be here, up close. Then I know how vibrant I can make my colors. And then as they recede back, my colors will have to also recede equally, or at least read like they are. It's interesting how white this looks on the screen, how gray.
Looks like water down there at the bottom
Yeah,
there, Tom.
Yeah, it does.
We're gonna get a lake down at the bottom of the hill. All right, great. So it leaves us a little bit of time. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and look at some of your guys' work. Any questions on that?
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
When you do your detail up in the front here with these leaves, have you already wiped out your detail?
No, barely. No, I'll be covering. My detail will be done with opaque paint mostly.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'll just come right over the top. Yeah, no, these vines, like especially in the foreground, will be a lot more detailed, and they'll have leaves sticking up and moving around, and grasses and dirt and all sorts of work to do.
I'd be interested in seeing you do detail.
All right.
That would be
Yeah.
great.
All right. Well, cool. Let's hope I can get to that. Maybe we can do that as part of my lesson for next week about how to create form.
Yes,
If I've got it far enough, then I can maybe finish it off with you guys. So we'll do the still life pear apple, whatever it is. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then I can show you how I create form within the landscape. No, I think that's a good idea. Cheryl, you're a genius.
Thank you.
Cheryl,
But
you're
the thing
doing it.
is, everything that you have done before has been amorphous. Do you understand what I mean? It's been a hint of the trees, a hint of the everything, but very, very little detail.
Right.
And I would just like to see you paint detail and talk about it while you're painting it.
All right. Cool. Yeah. I
About
find
the leaves.
it's much slower, right? You know, like when
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
painting a demo, you know, I can cover a canvas and it's a big mess, like you said, an amorphous mess, but at least it's exciting. When I get to the detail work, you know, where I just put a lot of paint down, it could be small areas. So yeah, I will definitely preserve some of these vines, maybe some of the mid-ground trees to show you how I would get in there with detail. Perfect.
Yeah.
Because that pulls it all together for us. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
you
no, and I
taught
know
us the
Michelle's asked
underbelly
me a
now.
couple.
We
What's
need
that?
we need to know how to put, you know, rubies on that sweet underbelly of everything you've taught
There
us.
you go. We need some rubies and cherries on top of
And
the-
pearls.
and pearls. All right, great. Well, I'm gonna take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back and it's gonna be just a quick look over of everybody's work. And he says that now we'll be here for 2 more hours, but
No.
let's take a break.
Okay.
5 minutes or 12:25, 7 minutes, 6 minutes.